Hey everybody, this is JP Derbergosian, not coming to you from the actual studio of AM 950 because as we're recording this, I have COVID-19. Please go get your vaccinations. There is something going around, and I finally, for the first time, got it, and I'm not happy about it, folks. But I am very happy about today's episode because joining me here on The Gailey Show is the one and the only Rex Ogle, who was recently a guest on This Queer Book Saved My Life. So you can go to everywhere that you get your podcast or thisqueerbook.com to listen to that delightful episode. But here we're going to be talking about all things books today and Marvel Comics. That was a really pregnant pause there. That was a really pregnant pause. But Rex Ogle, welcome to The Gailey Show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. And so you are currently in St. Louis, Missouri, because this week, folks, is Banned Books Week. And we're recording this on Monday, but you got panels like happening all week as well with Pen America. So tell me, what are you doing with them for Banned Books Week?
Well, first of all, I'm not shaming you, but I am in Salt Lake City, not St. Louis. But they sound very similar.
Okay, see, COVID brain.
COVID brain. Yeah, but I am here tonight. I'm speaking to, I think, a college, a bunch of educators. I'm on a panel with Pen America, every library, a local bookstore, and a librarian, and I'm blanking on all their names. That's so rude of me. But we're talking about banned books and why that's a bad thing, and why reading, important stories is so important.
So you are an author of YA lit, but you cover a lot of the ages of YA, which is why I'm using that particular term, because I think you also do like middle grade. I think you do some younger adult that are younger than that books. But tell me, first of all, for our listeners, have your books been banned?
I'm embarrassed to say that only one of my books has been banned.
Why are you embarrassed?
Well, because I've written some very spicy content, and I'm like, why haven't these been banned? Which I'm like, they must not be being read. But don't worry, once they get read, so I write everything from comic books. I have something I can't talk about coming out from DC Comics this year. And that's definitely adult. I write middle grade under my own name, Rex Ogle, and my pen name, Ray Terciero, under which I do modern day graphic novel retellings of classics. Next year I have Dan of Green Gables coming out, and it is very, very queer. I'm very excited for people to read it because it is beautiful. The artist did such an amazing job. I think I'm rambling past the question, but I also do really hard-hitting, very difficult topic stories, like Free Lunch, Punching Bag, Road Home, which just came out this past 6 months ago, and that's about my dad kicking me out for being gay, and the subsequent 3 months that I spent living on the streets of New Orleans, which is basically the darkest chapter in my life, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I both get banned and win the Pulitzer.
If you've already had one book that's been banned, then you have achieved said goal.
I just want to point out the book that got banned was Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, which was the first book I wrote under Ray Terciero, and is a modern-day retelling in graphic novel form of Louisa May Alcott's classic Little Women. And the reason it got banned, well, we don't know if it's because there were black people or because there was a gay character. Maybe it was both.
Probably.
But God forbid, Little Women. And it's such an innocent graphic novel that I'm like, I can't believe this got banned. Of all my books.
Well, I mean, so as I've learned diving into this topic and interviewing very, very smart people about the banned book phenomenon, is that they're not particularly smart about this, but they're organized. And so a lot of them have this, there's like a Facebook group apparently, and so that has a database. And so what ends up happening is that the other folks that want to ban the books just go there and they get the list from there. So they're not actually reading the books. They're not actually in the libraries interacting with teachers or students or their own kids or other parents. Basically, what they're doing is they're going into Facebook, they're finding a list, and then they're just banning from there. So whomever those people are probably not widely read enough to know all of the books, right, that are out there. But yeah, it's pretty dangerous. And also, like, there was one person who got a hold of this list, and they were in Wisconsin, and they were able to challenge or ban 400 books in a single district. One person.
Yeah.
So it is bonkers, which is the light way of saying that. I can't actually say what I want to say about that because the FCC will come after us and fine the station.
Totally fair.
But I do want to ask you about free lunch.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I wanted to go back from there. Why do you use a pen name for our listeners who wonder about why writers, write the way that they do? For those
Yeah.
listeners, why do you choose to write under Rex and also under Ray?
There's a couple answers to that question. I'll be brief. The first reason I used pen names was because when I was not smart enough, or I felt I wasn't smart enough to write books on my own. So I moved to New York City to work in publishing. I moved there with like $400 and a dream in a duffel bag, and I managed to scratch and claw and fight my way into jobs at Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and Scholastic, and Little Brown for Young Readers. And it was amazing because I learned from the inside how publishing works, why diverse books are very hard to push through. I have all this insider knowledge that I think makes me a better writer now because I've always worked hard, but not necessarily worked smart. And now I'm like, ha ha ha, I'm smarter than all of you. Not really. But while I was working as an editor, I was not supposed to be writing because it's considered a conflict of interest.
Mm.
But when you're being paid $35,000 a year in New York City, you have to do freelance work. So I was writing under several pen names. Honest Lee, Trey King, Alec Azam was one of them. That's for a magic
You
book.
had a lot.
Yeah, but so Ray Terciero came about because I am half Mexican, half white, and my name, Rex Earl Ogle III, is very white, and my abuela, who is from Mexico, used to call me her third king, Ray Terciero. So that is my other pen name. And then the second reason I have pen names is because, as with many creative outlets, everyone, once you do something, they want you to stay in your lane because we are not multifaceted human beings. We are not 360 individuals. We are one thing and one thing only. If you're Stephen King, you can only write horror. If you are Kristen Wiig, you can only do comedy. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, we can do other things. So Ray Terciero has very different style books than Rex Ogle, who I actually also have very different style books. So I'm pushing the envelope here. But I have a lot of ideas.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Absolutely. So talk to us about free lunch because that sort of provided the kind of gateway that kind of changed the trajectory, right, of your writing career.
Yeah. I mean, the whole time I was in New York, 15 years, I was writing. I would wake up, go to the gym, work all day, come home, strip off naked. Am I allowed to say that? Put on gym shorts and eat chocolate. And then I would write for 3 or 4 hours every night, Monday through Friday. And so while I was in New York, 15 years, I think I wrote 12 novels, and they were all rejected across the board. I wrote, and they were all fantasy, science fiction, young adult, Harry Potter, Stephen King type stuff. And then, and then I wrote Free Lunch thinking I'm going to write something completely different. I'm going to write about my middle school, 6th grade year and dealing with poverty and domestic violence. And it was the hardest thing I'd ever written. And I was like, this is an important story. There are millions of kids living in poverty and domestic violence still today. I was like, this will get published. And I sent it out, and it was rejected across the board. Every publisher was like, no one's going to touch this with a 10-foot pole. It's too dark, too heavy. Kids cannot read this stuff. They don't want to read this stuff. And then 5 years later, I moved to Los Angeles. I was like, I'm going to write full time. I'd saved up enough money. And I wrote an article for the Huffington Post about my dad kicking me out for being gay, and this publisher of a new imprint, Norton for Young Readers, came to me and he was like, "I will you write this book about your dad kicking you out for being gay?" And I said, "Absolutely not." But I
Mm.
wrote this other book, Free Lunch, and he read it. He printed it, uh, and librarians loved it, and they gave me a little award, and it had a sticker on it. There's a sticker on the cover now, and basically librarians launched my career. Like I owe everything to them because that's really what took off. And now I do like 5 school visits a month and talk to
Wow.
these kids, and all these educators are like, this is an important story because kids are living through this stuff. They need to hear that other people have lived through it and survived. And it's weird because, like, I mean, I just want to write X-Men. Let's be honest. All I've ever wanted to do is write X-Men comic books, and now somehow I'm talking about important topics and banned books in it. I actually posted on my Instagram this morning that I have imposter syndrome over the whole thing.
Wait, why?
Because I'm trailer trash from Texas who wants to write comic books. Like it feels weird that I would write what people consider an important book. Like it feels so weird. I just want to teleport and talk about Ilyana Rasputin and relaunch New Mutants and Generation X. Like that's what I want to be doing.
Well, I mean, Marvel,
Yes.
when you're listening to this, like obviously will connect you with Rick so that that dream can come true.
Oh my god!
But
I worked at DC Comics for 6 years, and I know editors at Marvel, and they still don't hire me. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I have 15 published books. Like, give me a chance.
we're gonna talk about Marvel here in a second. While we're talking about Banned Books Week,
Yeah.
which again for folks is happening this week, please check out all the resources that are available to you at your local public library for reading banned books, and also to support those libraries in undoing the bans. What message would you have to those parents that are, I don't know if they're on the sidelines per se, but they're sort of like not aware that these how the vitriol of these small minority of folks that are coming in hot and they're being angry and they're trying to get these books banned, and these are parents that are like, well, wait, no, let's not ban them, but they're sort of not quite sure how to go about responding to the hate. What advice would you have or message would you have to those parents? Like, should they get involved? Should they not get involved? What should they tell their kids? This is a huge question that I realize that I'm giving to you multi-part answers, but
Oh, it's,
take a stab at it.
I'll be honest. I have never been like one to join protests. Like I've gone to a few with friends, but that's never been my thing because I mean, I'll be honest, and this is a horrible thing to say. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I feel like I'm not helping in going in the street and holding up a sign. I feel like it's so much important to like write letters to senators or call their offices, like really harass the decision makers. Like it's good that they see the protests. It's good that that's in media. Um, and so yes, there is a place for that. For me, I'm much more aggressive. I like to be hands on. I rather like go knock on someone's door and be like, let's sit down and have a conversation, you and me, over
Mhm.
a coffee or a beer. And now I have a platform which is super weird. But what I would say to parents, like I know parents are so inundated with like they have jobs and they're raising kids and they're more worried about getting lunches for their kids to eat. And that's kids should eat. That's obviously very important to me. Um,
We
but what
believe that here in Minnesota, and now everyone knows that because of Governor Walz. So anyway, continue.
good, good. Um, but yeah, I think that what parents should do is if they can't go to PTA meetings or go to their local libraries or join protests, at the very least, the most important thing that a parent can do is tell their kid, like sit down, have a difficult conversation with them, which is so hard for everybody about anything. And I won't get on a soapbox about that, but they can sit down, have a conversation with their kids, and parents can encourage them to read about other people's lives and see how other people live because I think that develops empathy. I think there would be less war if we just understood other people, like reading books about other religions or other belief systems or kids who are living through domestic violence and poverty. Like these are important things for kids to either A, feel that they're being seen, as a book as a mirror, or that they're looking through a book as a window and seeing how someone else is living. And I think these are just, I think parents need to encourage their kids to read uh, books just to open their minds a little bit.
I like that too, the advice of diverse authors and diverse experiences. Because for a state like Minnesota that has banned book bans, congratulations, Minnesota, yay us, the work still continues. And I was just talking with a journalist about this. Like, this isn't over. There's still work that needs to be done to undoing the invisible bans, which is the decisions that were made to not necessarily make the library stacks reflective of either the student population or the, local public libraries. And so what are we doing to help those librarians feel empowered and supported to create those inclusive library shelves? And so what you're talking about is really great, because then if a student goes in and asks for the book, then the librarian is like, oh, well, maybe we should get it.
Yeah. And I will say resource, like if someone's like, I don't even have time to, do anything. I don't even know if I have time to talk to my kid. Go to Penn America or go to every library, and both have like they send letters to congressmen, and you can just go on and sign your name. It takes like 30 seconds. And then they take care of everything for you. So at least do that. Sign your name to a document that will go to your local governor or state representative and be like, yo, like, cut it out. This is not good behavior. This is not good for the future.
Right. So, what I want to ask next about, if we can, this is going to be a hard transition, is because I've got you here and I wanna talk about this. So we just had the new series drop on Disney Plus, Agatha All Along, which
Yes.
I saw the headline. I haven't gotten to the article yet, saying that this apparently is going to open the door to a queer movement or time within Marvel. And we just had the X-Men animated series that was definitely brought the queer storylines to the text, not just the subtext, subplots. Talk to me about queer characters in Marvel, because I feel like we've got Young Avengers, we've got New Mutants, we got the other team that I'm blanking on that's also super queer. They're like the Kids of Villains. Which is that one?
Oh my
I'm
God.
blanking on it. I
I'll be
know, right?
honest.
But
I'm not reading as much Marvel as I should be these days, only because Jonathan Hickman's Hoxpox was House of X, Powers of X was so amazing, and then after that they did my girl Madeline Pryor wrong, and they killed her off almost immediately. And I was like, seriously? And I know they brought her back, but I took a break for a moment, and I've been writing so much. I haven't been. I've been trying to read actually all the top 10 banned books. So that's been my project this year. So yeah, I haven't been reading comic books as much as I should. That's not true. I've been reading Saga by Brian K. Vaughan because that's amazing. But I do know I've been listening to the Homo Superior podcast, and talking about the new Dazzler comic book, which I think is very, at least a queer metaphor, because she's like, I'm out and proud, not as gay, but as a mutant. And I'm like, I mean, it's beautiful. So, and Dazzler, of course, is a gay icon.
So X-Men has always been, I think, the flagship storyline or proper. I don't want to say property because that sounds very capitalistic, but the flagship publication that I think has always been at least a metaphor for queer kids, 100%, right? And right, and I mean all of the storylines of even for kids that are in their elementary school or early junior high, you see the storyline of X-Men and you're like, oh my God, this is what I'm experiencing as a closeted kid or a kid that wants to come out.
Yeah.
Tell me about what it was like to write X-Men in the late 90s, early aughts, when we're sort of trying to see a moment. We just had Doma and Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but it's the turn of the century, and we're like, maybe we get another, opportunity to bring queer issues and queer, content forward. What was that like for you in the thick of it?
Well, I mean, I was, not to date myself, I was born in 78. So I discovered the X-Men through my best friend, William. He introduced me to X-Men in 6th grade. And then through X-Men, I discovered New Mutants, the junior class. And here were, I think there were like, it was a revolving cast of teenagers, but they had to hide who they were. They were at
Hmm.
Xavier School, and all the kids in local Westchester were like, who are these weird kids hiding up in the school with 10 students? And they would sneak out and go to local parties. One time they had a big slumber party where they invited all these kids over, but they were all hiding their secret that they were mutants. And to
Hmm.
me, I really related to that. And there was one issue, oh my God, I think it made me cry, where this one kid was a mutant, and rather than come out, he killed himself.
Mm.
And it was a devastating issue to read. And I don't know if the writer knew how queer adjacent that was, but it really touched me in such a way that, I mean, I fell in love with the X-Men, the New Mutants. Like it was beautiful storytelling, and for Marvel Comics to put that out in the, it was either late '80s, yeah, it was actually during the '80s. I was absolutely blown away, and yeah, I don't know that they were doing these queer subtexts on purpose, um, but they created a lot of just amazing, beautiful stories that resonate with me still today.
It is a little. Is it weird that because X-Men was such a obvious correlation, and maybe it was just for us queer folks, but it
Yeah,
did take them a hot minute to actually begin to introduce explicitly queer. Like there was North Star, which was he was in the late. No, he was during the HIV/AIDS pandemic. So what was that? Late '80s, early
late
'90s?
'90s. He was the first, I think, queer character to ever be in comic books. And I'll be honest, I hated him. Not only because I did not like Alpha Flight, but because the way he came out was very
Yeah,
flamboyant. And
yeah, it
again,
was.
that is my internal homophobia. Being a kid growing up in Texas, where there were three adult homosexual men who were murdered uh, within like 30 miles from where I lived over the course of I think
Mm,
4 years, and I was terrified of coming out. It was a scary time. One was hung from a tree, one was stabbed to death, and I can't remember how the third one died, but they were all very, very violent attacks. And so for not Quicksilver, North Star to come out the way he did, I felt it was scary to me. Um,
hmm.
and so that, and I would love to write a character that actually struggles with that because there have been a lot of gay characters lately. DC is pumping out the gay characters. Like Superman's son is gay, which is amazing. Robin, Tim Drake is bisexual now. It's beautiful. It's amazing, but I don't know that they're dealing with this kind of fear. Uh, and I don't know if that's just the new generation and these, because here's the thing is that I know that kids growing up in the city, life is more like Euphoria. They're open to gays. These kids that I go to school visits on, like they're like, do you watch Euphoria? I'm like, you're too young to be watching. Okay. You're like, what, 11? No, that's not appropriate. However, I do think that I don't think I know that there are kids in rural places in Texas, there, middle America, there are people in other countries, gays who cannot come out, who are still dealing with the fear that I grew up with when I was a kid. And now more than ever, we're a global community, and we should still be making stories for those kids, not just the out and proud and I'm friends with drag queens and I march in queer pride parades. Like I love those stories. I am glad they're there. I live in Los Angeles and I visit WeHo and there's these kids who are non-binary and gender non-conforming and trans and they're all just walking around with painted fingernails and I love it.
Hmm.
It makes me so happy. But my heart goes out to those kids who still don't have that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what advice would you have then to Marvel? I'm kind of fixated on Marvel just
Yeah.
because they're like the behemoth. I feel like right now, no disrespect to
Yeah.
DC, but what advice would you have to Marvel to be more authentic moving forward in the characters and storylines they're bringing forward?
Three things. I've actually thought
Ooh.
about this a lot. One is I think that they need to hire openly queer writers to write queer characters. They've done it a few times, and because some of those comics were not well received, and I won't name names, they were like, we'll never hire this person again
Mm.
because their book was not well received. And so that's really unfortunate. And I've seen them hire a lot of heterosexual people, both men and women, to write queer characters. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. Like, I grew up on Star Trek and X-Men, which are very diverse teams, and I would love to write Storm one day. I'm not a black woman. Maybe black women are like, only black women should write Storm. But I do feel that if you're going to represent some queer people, some diverse people, hire more diverse people, creators. And Marvel is doing that, and I am very happy for that. But I think that they're so focused on doing diverse stories that they do a mini series where it's like, here's Iceman, he's gay, he's out and proud, and I'm like,
Mm.
but what about day to day life? Like, what
Mhm.
does he struggle with at work or with his family, or maybe, and I would love this, write queer characters as just people. I mean, for me, being gay is the least interesting thing about me. Like, I feel like there's a thousand things I can talk about that I'm maybe not the least interesting thing, but I'm being is I think characters should be 360. They shouldn't just be a gay character. They should be like, I don't know, just a well-rounded individual, a normal person, because that's what gay people are.
Well,
We're
I
just
hate to interrupt about that because I love that advice, but I've got about 30 seconds left. So
oh,
tell us, how do people connect with you on social media and your website?
At Third Rex on Instagram. That's the main one. Go there, or to my website www.rexogle.com. And I have a great newsletter, lots of sneak peeks, lots of fun stuff. And we'll skip the third thing, but Marvel should hire me. Let me write X-Men.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Rex, for being on the Gaily Show. Twin Cities Pride Amplified is up next. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you here next Saturday.
Thank you. Take care.